that was a period where club volleyball was really at its apex. During that period with this team, like club was where it was at, and this was the best of the best. And there were a lot of men's open teams in this country and throughout North America. And BCO was, man, they were right at the top of that heap.
And it was an eclectic group of players. I call it the white-collar, blue-collar team. We had a number of university graduates with advanced degrees. We had a university professor, Al Marshall. The BCO team they were a group of very skilled players that had kept the club going for a number of years, and they were professional workers and classic sort of blue-collar jobs. And the real challenge for Brian Watson was now to blend this team and mold the team and make it a cohesive unit, because we had such different backgrounds. It was definitely, I think, a challenging year at the start, because we had all come together from different backgrounds. We had Mike Sayers and Scott Murray drove out in a Volkswagen across Canada to join, and we all eventually lived in the same house. So I think there were 4 of us from the team in the same house.
For British Columbia to take the gold medal at the national championship was very significant. I mean, this was a conglomerate of some of the best players ever produced in British Columbia. And I believe that Brian Watson did a great job, holding this disparate group of people together. Amazing group of athletes, and I highly commend Brian Watson for pulling that off.
It was Brian who was responsible for organizing sponsorships, for getting us into the MAC tournament down in Portland, for getting this uniform organized. There's so much stuff that Brian did outside of the court that built our team's image and enabled us to recruit Ian Gregory and all these other people that Ray Myrtle and Gord Chamberlain, we wouldn't have possibly been able to do that. So Brian made a really lasting contribution and key contribution, and I would say he really was the key, aside from the players, and Jerry and other people had leadership there, but it was Brian Watson who really made our team a success.
You know, like any good group of athletes, they learn from the experiences that they had the previous year. The difference was that team became a real team. You know, it wasn't just individual players that were really good that were playing. It was that, plus they had figured out how to work as a team, and which to me is why they're deserving of being in the Hall of Fame, because that is the distinguishing factor. You know, when you get to championships, being able to adapt, being able to learn how to play as a unit under enormous pressure, it's where the great players are really born.
Well, I think the first thing I remember was how bad we played in the round robin. We just squeaked in. We were 3rd place in our pool. Brian and Ray Myrtle, assistant coach, did a very good job of scouting. So we started off against the University of Calgary in the quarterfinals, and I beat them handily. But our most difficult match was in the semifinals against the University of Saskatoon Blues. They had Larry Plenner was playing, Don Saxon, ex-national team players. They had a big team. They beat us in the round robin. They were in our pool. It was midway through the 3rd set. We were tied 1 set each, and we were losing the 3rd game, and Brian Watson made the decision to remove me and substitute Walter Neufeld again. And that was the turning point. And we eventually won that match in 5 games. And Walter did a masterful job leading the team to victory. And I always credit him with actually really setting the goal for us winning that tournament. And in that match, Jerry Story went in and played just great. He was one of the key substitutes that Brian made. And he was sort of a small hitter against a big block, but just managed to get putting the ball by the block or off the block and scoring. And again, a big credit to him for helping us win that match. And in the finals, Manitoba had a difficult time stopping us. It was probably one of the best matches I think our team has played, and I think we were fully deserving of winning the national championship.
Like, we were all really focused that year because we had been in the finals the year before, and we were desperate to win. I think you would be fair to say, really determined, and the practices were good and people were pushing each other. And I think that really, we were prepared and we were hungry, and we'd had experience and we had the background. People were training, that kind of stuff. It was, happening in university, but not in club ball much.
This team should be inducted into the Volleyball BC Hall of Fame because they made the breakthrough to win the gold medal for the senior championship. But it was stamping the dominance of men's volleyball in Canada back to British Columbia.
Finally, I'd just like to congratulate everybody who was involved in playing and in supporting and so on our team. It's an honor to be part of it, and it's I think a well-deserved recognition.
The BCO men's volleyball team being inducted into the Hall of Fame. Fellas, I have some fantastic memories of playing with all of you guys. I mean, there are so many great athletes on this team and so many wonderful memories, and I'm so happy that you've been inducted into the Volleyball BC Hall of Fame. I think it is an honor that is really well deserved.
I would like to congratulate the BCO for making that breakthrough to win the gold medal at the national championship. And I believe that that was a quality performance by a quality group of athletes, and they highly deserve to be in the Volleyball BC Hall of Fame.
What a great summary of the achievements of this amazing team. On behalf of Volleyball BC, it is my absolute privilege to welcome to the Volleyball BC Hall of Fame the 1977-78 BCO men's team. We would like to introduce you to the individuals who made up this team. The team members are Doug Compton, Keith Gallicano, Ian Gregory, John Markwart, Al Marshall, Scott Murray, Walter Neufeld, Wolfgang Neufeld, Jerry Story, Mike Sayers, Gary Vigers, Randy Wagner, and head coach Brian Watson and assistant coach Ray Myrtle. Here to accept this induction on behalf of the team is one of the team members, Jerry Story.
Thank you, Emma. And hello to everyone out there in Zoom land and to our BCO teammates. And on behalf of the 1977-78 BCO volleyball team, I would like to thank Volleyball BC and the Volleyball BC Hall of Fame Committee for the consideration and the honor of being inducted. And a special thanks to Chris Marshall for his submitting of the nomination package. And also to the speakers in the videos, Charles Parkinson, Mike Rockwell, Ray Myrtle, Vic Lindell, Keith Gallicano, and I want you to note that they're all Volleyball Hall of Fame individuals themselves, and we really do appreciate their comments. A thanks also goes out to Wolfgang Neufeld, who dug deep for photos and medals, and he sent them in for the nomination package and the video presentation. And a special thanks to John Nielsen, Nelly, to all those volleyballers who know him. John was a terrific player from Manitoba who just happened to be the captain and the setter for the opponent Manitoba we faced in the Canadian National Volleyball Finals in 1978. He holds a silver medal for his and his team's efforts that year, and a wonderful accomplishment. But John also dug very deep into his vault of memorabilia and found many photos of that gold medal match in 1978. And I will ensure that all members of our team receives these photos. And again, a huge thanks to Nellie for digging deep and sharing what no one else knew even existed. One of the best things that happens when this sort of honor occurs is that we're all able to reconnect. And it's been a joy to be in contact with our team, some of our mates that have had long gaps in our communication. So this whole process has been just terrific, forcing us and allowing us to speak again, especially about something so dear to our hearts. And with that being said, I thought about what to say since I was asked back in November. And here's the most predominant thought that I have, and it's please do not have my comments here tonight be the definitive remarks for the 1978 BCO team. We were a team, and there were at least 12 players and 2 coaches who deserved their thoughts to be out there as well. My thoughts are just that, my words only. There is simply too much to say in a short amount of time on behalf of 14 people and all of their memories. But Kevin Barrar, Communications Director with Volleyball BC, hosted a podcast with me earlier this week that's now on the Hall of Fame site, and I urge all of you with interest to listen to. He was terrific at evoking memories from me that amounted to a bit of history of the BCO legacy, and if you have any issues accessing it, let me know and I'll send you a link. There are the stories in there that Mike Rockwell would have alluded to, and a lot of those are included in that podcast. I say that as it was 43 minutes long, but truly it felt like 7 or 8 minutes when we were doing it. There was a whole lot we spoke about, and it may fill quite a few holes in tonight's presentation. I also want to be careful not to have too much overlap with content from tonight, though there will be some. The era of the senior men's volleyball club in BC in the mid to late 70s and early 80s was very much dominated by the BCO club. In a 5-year stretch that placed us second, first, second, third, and fifth in the national finals, started at the 1977 final when they won silver. It also meant they had to win, and we had to win, the provincial championships just to qualify. But the success in that year, 1977, that silver medal translated to a harvesting of some of the best players on the team and in BC by Canada's national team. Taken to begin their national team career were Charles Parkinson, who you met tonight, Big Al Kostiuk, and Bobby Matwichuk, all significant contributors to the silver medal finish. Left at BCO were Captain John Marquardt, Wolfgang and brother Walter Neufeld, Doug Compton, and Gary Vigers, all very good players, but only a nucleus of a team and not a full team. And as I said in the podcast, I'm sure Coach Brian Watson had a lump in his throat, wondering how on earth they were going to be as competitive as the year before. But things evolved, and recent UBC graduates Ian Gregory and Keith Gallicano became available to the club. As you heard from Keith, Mike Sayers and Scott Murray had driven out from the Maritimes in search of a team to play for. I moved down from Revelstoke to begin education and needed a team to play again with. And within 6 weeks, an incredibly talented 18-year-old came down from Prince George by the name of Randy Wagner. And Randy joined us and was to become one of BC's greatest players ever, eventually playing for Canada and professionally for many years. Also joining us was Al Marshall, a chemistry professor from UBC who had tremendous athletic ability and hit a very hard and heavy ball. And that was it. As far as players go, we had our complete roster of 12 with coaches Brian Watson and Ray Myrtle. So a very different team from the silver medal team from the year before. 7 new players to mold together with the 5 remaining ones into a cohesive, competitive team. A very important factor in our success was our coach, Brian Watson. Brian could not have known or predicted at the start of that championship season that we would win the gold medal. But as we participated in the fall, the tournaments that were available at UBC, UVic, SFU, Seattle, Portland, things really started to take shape. It became evident as the wins continued to pile up that this was a team that could compete for the national title again, despite losing the talent that it did. And then in the new year, tournaments like Super Volley in Saskatoon and in Calgary and in Edmonton, our confidence grew with every step as we got closer to the potential Canadian finals. I know Brian had a stronger vision than any of us, and he was relentless in the pursuit. As Mike Rockwell pointed out, we practiced 3 to 4 days a week, often for 3 hours at a time, and come Friday, we were in a weekend tournament somewhere. If international teams came to Vancouver, we would be first on their list to play. Teams from Mexico, the US, Japan, Korea, China were all part of our calendar. Brian was BCO. He was so committed, as was our captain, John Marquardt. Brian deserves so much of the credit for our success. He procured gyms. He arranged for modest financing for travel and equipment and sweatsuits. He entered us in tournaments. He was our travel agent. He did it all. And most of the success would not have happened if not for him. And he was only in his mid-20s at that time. And also a word about his assistant coach, the great Ray Myrtle. And my observation with Ray, I have said many times before, if you want to have a high-level volleyball conversation about playing and coaching and strategy, he's your guy. But if you also need to have the nets put up or brought down or have the balls filled with air or put away, he's the first guy that will jump up and do that as well. They were a terrific combination for us and for the team. Not enough can be said about the organizational part of BCO, and that's because of the effort of the coaches, Brian Watson and Ray Myrtle, and also Captain John Marquardt. Keith alluded to our national final, and I want to talk a little about the fate and the destiny of that particular team and that particular tournament. At the 78 national final in Regina, we did not start well, as Keith alluded to. And during the round robin, we scrambled, but we did make it to the semifinals against Saskatchewan. The semifinal match against Saskatchewan is now part of volleyball legend and folklore, at least with our team. The Saskatchewan block was made up of people like Don Saxton and Larry Plenert and Brian Gambord. These are some of the biggest players in the country at that time. They were 6'6" to 6'8". They had the longest arms in the country and the biggest hands. Our team, our biggest players were 6'3" and 6'4", and we only had 2 of them. The rest of us were all 6 feet to 6'2". We were not big. I joke about it in the wonderful Keith Gallicano that he could walk under the net without bending over. We were losing 2-1 in a 5-set match. Keith, I think, may be wrong in this. He said 1-1, but I think I will overrule. I'm having some fun with them. We were in dire straits. Al Marshall had wrecked his knee with an under the net collision, and he was on crutches and an ice bag during that match, during that match, sorry. And things were looking rather dire. And Keith is right. It was a double substitution that Brian Watson made, and it was the most astute substitution of his young coaching career to that point. He put in the right players with the right spark at the right time. And under intense pressure, do or die, we were ready. Every one of us at that, every moment in time when called upon, were ready. And it really amounted to life lessons. When the opportunity presents itself and you are ready, good things can happen. From gold being placed to winning that match to moving into the gold medal match to having lost that match potentially, we could have placed 4th. That could have happened. If we had lost that match, would we have been up for a bronze medal match? I don't know. Who knows? But here's what I do know. We would not be standing here today had Brian not made that substitution, a gutsy call that was absolutely the right call. And at that level of play, it is such a fine line between winning and losing. And I'm not joking when I say this, but 4 years of medals at that level could have been 4 years of 4th places. But we were prepared and ready when called upon, every single teammate. On the podcast, I was asked if or how that winning era affected volleyball in BC. It did. BCO was a feeder team to the Canadian national team with the players mentioned here. But it was also a landing spot for players that were finished their careers with Canada. Coming and playing with us following years were such standouts as Greg Russell, Al Kostiak, Charles Parkinson, and it's what kept the BCO level at its highest caliber possible. This was such a terrific time to be part of the BCO club. So we did it. April 1978 had the team crowned Canadian national champions. I remember flying back on that late April flight, Sunday evening from Regina, celebrating on the plane with the whole team wanting to continue toasting our win. There were no establishments open on the Sundays in those days, so we all headed down to Point Roberts with medals around our neck. And for those of you that don't know, that's just south of the border in Vancouver. And we took over the dance floor to high five and hug anyone that was in range. And I've been asked many times as to why that BCO team was so successful. And the obvious answers are the coaching, the practicing, the dedication, all the textbook responses that you've already heard. And they're all true. But there are two intangible factors that, in my opinion, stand out and are so very responsible for how we view each other even today. The first is that the team was full, and I mean full, of humor. Everyone was funny. Everyone had something to say all the time. It was such a great environment to be teammates with people like these guys. And who knows if this comes before humor or alongside it, but we really liked being with each other. We were together so much at all times. And when we had a break, we got together. We watched the Super Bowl. We went to pubs. It didn't matter as long as we were together. And even with highly competitive guys vying for a spot on the court, there were no major conflicts. Everybody was wanting everyone else to do well, and we supported each other. And trust me, this is rare, but it is glue, and we were good at this. Also, and here's an incredible, truly incredible stat to share with you. If we add up the years of each of the 14 individuals on the team with respect to their playing, coaching, refereeing, building, and executive participation, the number is well above a combined 500 years on contributions to volleyball in the province of BC. These are Gretzky-like numbers that I believe will never be surpassed by a single club team ever again. And now to all the players and coaches, we must do our part to keep that era alive. As the future's promised to no one, we need to recognize we're losing some of our greatest players and people. In the last few years, we bid goodbyes to greats Al Kostia, Larry Plenert, Walter Jensen, Bob Fosberg, Dave Shokar, and Sandy Silver. People, we need to be together. We need to keep the flame of our era burning. And my suggestion, and with the social conveners Wolfgang and Walter Neufeld and Ian Gregory, when it is safe, probably sometime in 2022, in a park, golfing, at a beach, it doesn't matter where, we need to get together with each other, with our families, and celebrate who and what we are. I also want to do something kind of special here. I want to invite anyone in the volleyball community to be with us. Those UBC teams with Gary Warner and Smoke and Joe Austin that gave us so much competition. Warren Ham and the UVic guys. The Vancouver Volleyball Club with Mike Rockwell, Dale Oman, and Jerry Allen. Flex. Everyone from that era. We are all the same now, not delineated by teams anymore. You can expect contact by us, and we need your ideas to come rolling, but let's just do it and make it happen. And I want to leave you with a couple of examples of what this meant to us as players. When we first found out that this was going to happen, it was up to me to get a hold of everybody and let them know. And one of the first calls I made was to Mike Sayers. And Mike was walking his dog at the time. It was very sweet. And when I told him what had occurred and what was going on, he was, I think the only word I can think of here is he was giddy. He was just absolutely giddy and excited about this happening. And he said to me, Jerry, he says, can I tell my son I'm in the Hall of Fame? And I said, Mike, you can tell your son that you're a teammate and a member of the BCO Olympic volleyball team that is going to be inducted into the Hall of Fame early next year. He was beside himself. It was emotional and it was very powerful. And I was so happy for him when he said it like he did. The other thing that happened that just absolutely stood out was everybody sent in their chronology as to when they played and how long they played. And that's how I got the numbers of over 500 years. We did the addition on all of that. And the great hitter, Al Marshall, who had to leave us fairly early. When I say leave us, he moved to Ohio and then down to Florida, and I'm sure other places. Al was a professor at UBC at the time, and he has credentials that are just mind-blowing. He was the one that sent a resume that was probably 5 pages long, single typed with a font of about 8. It was just unbelievable, the things that he's done. I will butcher this like hell because I cannot speak to his talents and his abilities academically. But Al has one of the most impressive resumes I've ever seen on the planet. His achievements, his books that he's written, his papers that he's written, his committees that he's chaired, I can't do it justice. But I was going through it and my jaw was dropping constantly. And I got to about 2/3 of the way down the second page, and in all this black print, there was this one little red line. And I thought, oh, this looks like an addition that he must have made and a correction that he needed to do. And I read that little red line, and all it said was, Ace Spiker, 1978 BC Olympic champions. I broke out laughing. It was so funny. It was so apropos. It was so terrific that he highlights this in a resume that the rest of the world marvels at. There's too much to say in one standing video here. And unfortunately, we don't have all the time in the world. But lastly, I do want to speak to the children of the BCO players and coaches. You've heard from your dad. You've seen the medals. You've heard that they won a national championship. And I have to tell you that all of us that have kids that have heard us talk about this for years and years and years, and it might roll their eyes a little more than it should. But I want to say to you tonight that you've seen the winning medal from a national championship, and tonight's team induction are proof. And to all you kids looking at your dad was a hell of a player. Give him a hug and let him know that you now believe him and you're proud of his accomplishments. Go to the podcast on the BC or on the Volleyball BC website and go to our team induction. There's much more there. I talked for 45 minutes, and all of you know I do that more than I should. There's a lot there, and it's a lot of fun to sort of relive some of that stuff. But so again, I want to say on behalf of the 1977-78 BCO National Championship team, thank you to the Volleyball BC and the Volleyball BC Hall of Fame Committee. And a special thanks to all of you out there in Zoom land for being part of this evening. And to all the teammates of the BCO Hall of Fame team, I can't wait to be with you soon. And huge congratulations to all of us. We all hope to see all of you as soon as we can. Thank you, everyone, for participating this evening. Emma?
Jerry, thank you so much for joining us tonight and for sharing great memories and stories about the team. What a talented group of players. Your speech really evoked the spirit of a very special team whose friendship bonds are as strong as your record of achievements. So on behalf of Volleyball BC, congratulations to the 1977-78 BCO men's team for their induction into the Volleyball BC Hall of Fame. We will be sending all of you your official Volleyball BC Hall of Fame plaques and gifts after the ceremony. As we close off this series of ceremonies, I wanted to bring your attention to the Volleyball BC Sport Development Fund. Instead of charging admission to these virtual induction ceremonies, we invite you to consider donating to this fund, which supports program development for athletes, coaches, and referees across the province. Please visit our website if you're able to contribute. And before we finish, I would like to congratulate the entire class of the 2021 inductees. Betty Baxter, who was inducted into the athlete category on February the 17th. Tom Jones, who was also inducted into the athlete category on February the 24th. Barb and Dennis Murdoch, who were inducted into the Builder category on March the 3rd, Don Smith, who was inducted into the Coach category on March the 10th, and finally, the 1977-78 BCO men's team, who were inducted into the team category tonight. I would like to say a huge and very special thank you to Kevin Barrar and Matt Doherty, who have been the production team behind these last 5 ceremonies. They've worked tirelessly to create the podcasts, produce the ceremonies, and capture the stories of all of the inductees. Kevin and Matt, you've done an amazing job, and we thank you for all of your hard work. I'd also like to remind all of you that you can read all of the inductee bios, view the digital program, listen to the podcast, and watch the videos and inductee speeches on our homepage at volleyballbc.org. Thank you to everyone who attended each and every virtual induction ceremony this year, and a huge congratulations to our class of 2021 inductees of the Volleyball BC Hall of Fame. Thank you, everyone, and have a good night.